Welcome to our LEAP group discussion of the value of support from peers, either in groups or individuals, friends, family, whoever. And we're just going to have a fairly random discussion and hopefully pass on a few pearls of wisdom as to the importance. Mac?
What I would like to say as far as peer support is concerned, being amongst people in the same situation is easy to connect with. I feel that people living with dementia connect better with people living with dementia. And I always say that people like me, if that makes sense to you. So people that are in the same situation as me, they're all like me. And when I meet them, they like me. So we have a bond together, we have a connection together. And I think that over the last few years, and especially the lockdown, I've met so many, and it's been on Zoom or Teams or whatever. And the connection we have is incredible. You know, it's exactly the same with George. I mean, me and George met on Zoom. And now we have another on the phone and on social media and everything. So we got a real strong connection. And I think I've got friends for life.
But Mac, tell us, what is it that you actually gain from that connection?
There are two things. We are basically, first of all, we are sharing tips. What works for me might not work for you, but there's no harm in trying. Yeah. So we share tips, and you know, the biggest issue that we or people with dementia have is actually having that rapport built and the trust with other person. And if you meet somebody with dementia, I think that barrier is automatically lifted, and you begin to trust that person, and that you confide in them. And I think you offload things, and that benefits you, and it's therapeutical.
Yep, absolutely. I do agree. Hannah.
No, I agree with Mac, and I personally found comfort with peer support caring for Neil, so in a different situation than Mac. But I just wanted to pick up a little bit that my husband Neil, there was a local charity, young people with dementia in Berkshire, and he got peer support through going to the choir and workshops, but he didn't like to talk about things, and so he didn't seek out peer support from other people with dementia, although he obviously felt comfortable mixing in those groups. But it was also to say, actually, from an Admiral nurse's point of view of how to support a family, Neil was lucky that he had a peer support of old friends and a group of dads whose kids went to school with my girls that included him in walks, regular breakfasts, curry nights, all the way through his illness before he eventually went into a care home. They still included him, and he found that break away from dementia, trying to maintain normal roles. And they were very peers. It was peers as in his age and his old friends, but he found that type of peer support really important as well, kind of that carrying on as normal. And they even got to the stage where, you know, they'd cut up his food when they went to the pub for breakfast, you know, and do all those things. They were really kind, and that meant a lot to him, being still included and being able to carry on with that.
I think that's a really good point too, because we often say social engagement is incredibly important to keeping people feeling okay, feeling good. And you know, we hear a lot about dementia-friendly groups and singing for the brain and stuff, but actually, a lot of us, certainly in the early to middle stages, really just want to go on as normal and be with the people we know. I mean, having said that, I find the only people I really enjoy relaxing with and talking, you know, not only about dementia, but about things, life in general, is the peer group in the Deep group in Shrewsbury. because as Max said, they get it. They know what it's about. We're all at different stages. We're most of us men as well, as it happens, but we don't necessarily have huge football talks because only one of us is particularly keen on football, and it's not me. So peer can be. I mean, what we're talking about is people, someone to be with, to talk to go out for coffee with, to go to the cinema with, whatever it might be. But someone who just normal life. Peter, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with those what you and Mac are saying, but I'm looking at it from the point of view of what extra I've got from it. And I mean, the biggest one I think I've got, it's hope, because from when I was first diagnosed, I was, oh well, you'll be dead in a few years, so it's not worth bothering as much. But since I've met other people in the same boat, I mean, you go on for years and years being quite competent and being able to do things, and that really revised my whole approach to the future.
Yeah.
I thought, oh well, it might be worth planning for things instead of just oh well, it's all over. The other one is that alluding to what Max said about help. You actually get practical help from people who actually understand what you're going through, not people who just learnt about it in a book. People who know that it's annoying to be asked if you remember something. People who read a book know that you shouldn't ask people with dementia if they remember things. But people with dementia know how annoying it is. It indicates to us, or to me at least, that they just don't understand it.
Yeah.
By asking me to remember something, they're just rubbing it in somehow. And the other one I get from the group is the sort of a feel good factor from the feedback I get from what contributions I can make.
Yeah.
So that again, the sort of you're not useless just because your brain is going to pot. You there is something you can still contribute. There's still something you can do, and you can get the feedback you get from doing that. That's very valuable and useful to to build you up.
Absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, I yes, Hannah.
I was just going to say no, and that's something that when I met carer peer support on a personal, that sharing tips, sharing hints, someone who understands what you're going through, giving you that, you're doing all right, Hannah, what well done, or that recognition, because you often can feel I'll say a failure, but you just feel that I don't understand dementia. Of course I don't. I haven't got it. I have I'm witnessing it, but I don't understand what it's like for Neil's brain. George and the people on this LEAP panel have given me more insight than Neil's been able to give me, and that's why I value this peer support group as much, because it's a mixed, and that's been really useful for me. But my peer support with other carers gave me connection, shorthand of understanding what was going on at home, and also that all right, well done, keep going, especially when obviously I've got children, so discussing how to approach things with children and how that's going, that was really invaluable, talking through having that.
Just because I think it was really interesting how you've got your peer support group together. Was that through your Admiral Nurse, Hannah? Because I didn't have an Admiral Nurse. The peer support, I didn't really have peer support as a carer, former carer now, for my mum, and I would go along to some carers' peer support type things, and I didn't really feel like I fitted in there. And my daughters had the same experience of being part of the young carers network. They didn't feel like they had much in common with the other young people. So I think it'd be helpful for you to say a bit more about how your peer support happened, because I know it's been an absolute lifesaver for you.
Yeah, I guess what we're saying there for peer support is like appropriate peer support. Because like you, I went even to, we got this charity YPWD, and I went along to that initially. And although Neil had young onset dementia, all the other carers, were 10, 15 years older than me and in a very different stage of life. So like you, I felt you don't get me, I don't get you. You know, I'm juggling junior school. You've got your grandchildren are at junior school. You know, it's different. So it was, my Admiral nurse. She obviously, I was referred to her, and then another family was referred to her. She was just like, aha, two families, you know. And luckily, this other lady Jo and I got on really well. And then two other families the other side of Berkshire. So Lizzie kind of created peer support for the children by a short one, but actually the problem, and although the kids benefited, actually the bigger benefit from that was us parents would go off and have a coffee at the same time the kids were having an art workshop, and therefore once the 10-week project ended, we've continued that regular meetup, and that, so it is very much appropriate peer support. It's people that are in your same situation who get it, you know, because quite rightly, you know, dementia's across the whole gamut, isn't it? And
Yeah. We often think about groups as being some sort of formal groups, with a person organising them and so on. I mean, you know, we know about dementia cafes, Age UK groups, Care and Share, whatever it might be. And they may suit some people, but we're all at different stages, so we need and ages, and we need to find people that we happen to be comfortable with, who may be in a similar situation or may have gone through it or whatever. So I'm thinking, what an opportunity it might be for Admiral nurses, or I know they haven't got much time once they've got their lists full, but for Admiral nurses to actually, as I think they have done with Hannah and her friends, to connect us. It doesn't have to be any great amount of work involved, just to say, I think you might get something out of talking to X or Y. So shall I just connect you or ask if I can pass on contact? You know, that sort of thing. That would be an invaluable help.
And that's the benefit of Admiral nurses, is that they have got to know, well, hopefully the model is that they've got to know the people they are supporting. So therefore, because they've got to know the wider family and know as individuals and have had more time to build those relationships, they are more likely to go, do you know what, you two could help each other here. And I guess a bit outsourcing the support, you know, or supplementing the Admiral nurse provision by giving people, you know, peer support.
One of the things that I found really beneficial actually was going along to different peer support groups with both my mother and my mother-in-law, just for the first few times, just to get them confident actually to attend the groups, because the lack of confidence was a real big thing for both of them. But one of the things that was really lovely was something called a Warm Welcome Wednesday. So this was a monthly meeting where people would just get together, and it wasn't specifically for people with dementia. It was designed so that people with dementia would feel quite comfortable, you know. So the environment, they took a lot of attention to the environment, and you know, people were welcomed, and the activities were geared to people that would find it comfortable to do. And it was great, and actually I still go. So because I've made some really good friends there actually, and you know, the craft activities I really enjoy, and lots of carers go as well as people living with dementia, and other, you know, members of the public who haven't got dementia and who are not carers. It's just a warm welcome Wednesday, and it's really good.
You raise another important point there, that some groups, informal or formal, have only people with dementia, without away from their carers. And indeed, quite likely at the same time, those carers meet elsewhere, in an adjoining room or whatever it might be. But a lot of us, and I've come across one or two situations recently in my group where there's been a carer around on a Zoom, and the carer has jumped in on something that I said and got quite angry with me.
Yes, thanks, George. Yeah, we are one of the groups where we don't have carers. And there are two reasons for that. I feel that people, like I said, people with dementia connect better with people with dementia. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And we are so protective of our family and even the family carers that we have. And there are times when we don't tell them the truth, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We try and hide that so that we don't want them to feel that we are burden on them, especially children. So that's the reason why we don't have carers in there.
Yeah, it's about this mixture of people with dementia and carers. I sort of tend to categorize those sort of people living with dementia in the brain and people living with dementia in the house. And there is a difference, and I find in mixed groups, it's a bit difficult now with Hannah and Jill and Susie here. In mixed groups, the carers very often, because they are they're more voluble and they've got different agendas, they tend to swamp us and take over instead of listening to what we're trying to convey to each other. They sort of jump in with bright ideas and talking very often too quickly as well. So that's why I prefer really groups with only people with dementia in the brain in them, because I feel like I'm more in a comfortable environment then when everybody's equal, even though we're all at different stages. We're not that equal, but as opposed to the people who have still got complete brains, who, you know, they've got different agendas, but also they can speak more smoothly.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
and convincingly.
I suppose. I mean, I remember a lady who came to our group a few years ago now, who the first time she came with her husband, and she was quite old, quite far advanced, and she didn't say anything. She just sort of looked around and whatever, drank the cup of coffee that he chose for her, and then the second time she came, we suggested he leave her on her own for half an hour. She immediately had one of the more expensive coffees, frothy one, and put 4 sachets of brown sugar into it, and said, "Oh, that's good. He won't let me." And and she started talking, and that's maybe slightly extreme example, and it wasn't with any malice either. It was just the way it had developed. That's all. Because there are so few groups around that at the moment there isn't a lot of choice, and that's why people, how many times do we hear stories about people who get a diagnosis, go into their shell for a few months, and then come out, and someone usually from the memory service actually suggests, well, why don't you try this dementia cafe that we run? And you go along like I did, and you're surrounded by people who are much, much further on than you, who can't have a conversation. Well, within 10 minutes, I couldn't cope with that. I thought, I just can't do this. So I left. Yes.
No, that was Neil's first experience when, again, in the first few years when we were offered these places. I took him along to one of these workshops, and he was like, "Hell no, these are not my people. No. I don't relate to these people. I don't want to relate to these people." And actually, obviously 5 years down the line, he went along to these workshops and he loved them. It was introducing him at the right point when it was
Yes.
right for him,
Yeah.
but at the beginning stages, me as his carer was wanting to find him some support and help, so was suggesting these things, and actually it was completely the wrong time.
And again, that reflects the lack of understanding out there generally about the sort of support or lives we want in the early to moderate stages, where we're still independent. We may have some difficulties. We may not be able to talk fast. So we may not be able to compete with coffee machines and noise and everything else. I tell you what, going back to what Jill said earlier about finding a location, it is incredibly difficult as a group facilitator to find a good dementia aware or a place without the barriers of noise, flooring, tables, too many people. You know, you really want a really unpopular, unsuccessful cafe without a coffee machine. But of course, you know, they tend to close.
I suppose the other one is actually validation of your, from that just make this discussion, validation of your ideas as well.
Yeah.
It's not just the positive feedback of saying we're well done, but actually you have, like you started off, you don't know how it's going to, what the reaction's going to be. Well, now you've got the reaction to it, and that sort of thing. So, we have an idea about something that might be a good idea, but we don't know whether that's because our judgment is impaired, and therefore we think it's a good idea. Then, when you get to talk to other people, then you can say, it is a good idea, and also you can enhance it.
Really interesting point, because I mean, when I started out with this dementia thing, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking certain things, and then I got invited into the Deep network via various channels, and as I heard more and more, that validated in my ideas, because I was hearing everybody else saying the same things. So I felt, well, I'm not trying to represent everybody, but I know that what I'm thinking is what a lot of other people are thinking. Therefore, I can speak out on our behalf, so to speak, and advocate. And I think that's what all of us do.